Hello and welcome to Vlogmas day 17. This is a slightly different kind of Vlogmas from me because it's just been a full-on day, and I really didn't have anything to show you really because that's all I did today was drive into Galway to collect carrots and do a few kind of jobs that we had to do. And yeah, there was nothing to show really. I mean, there was no power washing, there was no tree hanging, there was nothing. But I have come up to my sewing room now because I just need to, you just need to sort of let the day go and just do something. And I just feel sort of like my head is all over the place at the minute. So I just thought, right, come up and just do something and try not to make a mess of it. So I've decided that I'm going to make some Christmas cushions. And I really enjoy making cushions and things for the house, and I get around to it not terribly often. So I've made a kind of a Christmas but non-Christmas cushion. Now this is a really big cushion, look at that, it's even bigger than my head. And I've put some piping on it. And I just thought, this week in one of our Zooms we had to talk about piping and stuff, and I thought this might be interesting. You know, you might like to see how I do piping. Now chances are you know how to do piping and everything, but I'm going to show you how I do it. So I love how this turned out. I've made red piping, so I have piping cord inside that, and I've covered it with bias tape that I made. I've got a zip in the centre back, and honestly I am going to say the way I cut out the back, it's just purely fluke that those stripes and stuff matched up, honestly. So I always put the zips in the middle of the back when I'm doing piping because I just think the whole cushion sits nicer. And like, to be fair, if you saw that you wouldn't actually see the zip anyway. Quite proud of that actually. After the day I've had, I actually think that's pretty good. Like, it's a miracle, but it's pretty good. So yeah, this is a big cushion. That's one I made earlier because I can make piped cushions no problem, but you know when you set up the camera and you go, do you know what, I'm just going to make one and show you how to do it. I mean, there's a good chance of messing up. Now that one is slightly messed up, I'm going to be honest. It's ended up an inch wider than it is tall, but you know what, it still works, it's fine. And I'm not going to beat myself up against it or about it, it's still fine. Nobody'd notice, unless you brought a tape measure to my house. You wouldn't know the difference. So that's it. Yeah, full disclosure, messed up. So I always like feather cushions. I just really like them because you know what, you can whack them, they'll pop back into place rather than the old wadding things that go hard and lumpy and everything. And you know what, if you ever have one of those days where you need to re-stress or de-stress, you can always get the cushions and like beat them against the furniture and they plump up, and it's almost like therapy, you know. I mean, who needs those massage balls when you've got like feather cushions? Just beat them off the furniture, they plump up, and it's like, wow, that's great. I feel great, and my cushions look amazing. So I like that when the cover goes on the cushion that it's nice and plump. So I don't like a baggy cushion cover. You know the way you don't like baggy tights, baggy leggings? I don't like a baggy cushion cover. I like it to fit. So these ones are absolutely ancient, and they say that they're 19 inches square. I measured them and they still are 19 inches. So if your cushion cover doesn't actually, if it's not kind enough to tell you what size it is, what I would do, because I used to make cushion covers for people and they didn't always have tags on them, I would measure from, not along the edges here, sometimes that can be a bit out. I measure from this seam right across the cushion to the other side, and then I check that that's 19 inches. Oh, and by the way, I'm in my pyjamas and dressing gown, so you know, it's not late in the evening, I just feel like it's pyjamas time. So yeah, mine is 19 inches, and what I've done is I have cut my cushion front 19 inches square. So I haven't left anything for seam allowances. I'm going to use like a 1/2 inch-ish seam allowance, and then by the time I have my cushion cover made, it's going to fit really nicely, and when I give it an old whack, it's going to be nice and plump. So that's 19 inches square. I've rounded the corners. So you can see they're very slightly rounded. I've just done that with the scissors. I've just kind of taken off like the pointy bit. So that's the front. I've cut 2 backs. And because that was such a miracle that that matched up, I thought, well, I'll make an effort this time. So I have kind of loosely matched up the 2 backs. So I have cut them 19 inches high, and then I've cut them 12 inches wide. And what I've done is I have overlocked one long side and I've turned in a fold of roughly 1.5 inches. And I've done that on the 2 of them. So I'm going to set them to one side because I'm not going to do them yet. As in, I'm going to start with the piping. But my other raw materials that I have are, if you ever see this stuff, it's continuous zip on a roll. It's really handy. I am toying with stocking it in the shop next year. We'll have a look. This is what I always use because it works out very economical for making things like cushion covers, if that's what you're into, or even if you're not into. And it comes in really handy if you don't have a white zip or a coloured zip for the back of your dress as well, or yeah, anything. So this one has 10 meters of zipper, and then it comes with a little bag of gliders. And I will say it is a little knack to get them on, and goodness knows if this is actually even going to work for me, but I'm going to show you kind of how I do it. So you open, let me see if we can get that to focus, you open up your zipper a little bit. Now I doubt if this is going to work for me because I'm in an awkward angle, but wouldn't it be lovely if that would just stay focused? It wants to find a face, so put it on like that and then shove the other bit in. This is where I often find I want to have like 3 hands, so just pull it down a little bit. Yeah, you'd love to have, I know I've seen people, oh look, there it goes. It's actually gone on. That was too easy. Sometimes I see people with like a fork to hold the end of it and then pull it down so it's on. I'm actually going to do that a second time because that was a bit freaky. So on a little bit like that, shove the other one in. I'm using my camera at the minute, so I'm not quite sure. So put that in, hold on to that one. Oh! No, I knew it wasn't going to be so easy this time, was it? Okay. Put the second side in. Okay. I'll be honest, sometimes I grab that bit on the end of my teeth, so that's really bad. Not a good tip. Now it's gone a bit wrong. Oh. Okay, snip that off. You want that to be a good, like, clean edge for it. Okay, let's stay in focus. Put that on. Pop that in. Pull it down. Get somebody else to help you. Stick that on your teeth. Oh, hang on, we're on. There we go. You get the gist. It's a bit of a pain. I'm sure there is a knack. And that is what you'll kind of end up with. So yeah, sometimes if I'm making loads of cushion covers, that will just run so smoothly, and then other times it's just being a pain in the butt. But yeah, that's how you put that on. So yeah, really, really handy. I find these really handy because zippers can be quite expensive, but this works out fairly cheap. So we'll move that, and then what I have is I have made some bias binding. So this is just cotton fabric. I've made bias tape. It's 4 centimeters wide, and I've joined all my bits together. And I've got piping cord. Now I have like an industrial roll of piping cord. This one says it's a number 5. So piping cord comes in loads of different thicknesses. This is the one that I used to use a lot of, so clearly I used to use a lot because I have a full roll of it. So that's what it looks like. This is a pre-shrunk one. So when this is washed, it basically won't shrink any more than this, but just check out if you are buying some of it. So that's basically how it looks in the middle. And what I have done is I cut a little piece of fabric. I tested what width, so basically put it around, and I had a look to see was there going to be enough of it to cover and give me a seam allowance. So I decided on 4 centimeters. So whatever thickness, just do your little test on a piece. So yeah, this is bias so that it will go around the corners. So if it's not bias, it won't go around the corners. You can use straight. I've seen upholsterers using straight fabric, but I much prefer to use bias tape. It just goes around a little bit better. And let me see. Yeah, that's all I'm going to show you from there. I'm going to set up the camera at a different angle so that you can see me making the covered piping cord. So for making piping and doing zips and just doing cushions, your zipper foot is your best friend. And I have set the needle over here on the left for doing the piping, and I will be changing it for doing zips and things. So I have my needle moved slightly over, a little bit more to the left, so this is center position, and I've moved it over so it'll go all the way over to there, and then I'm going to set it kind of slightly halfway between like center and as much as it can go over. And what I also do is, this is where I adjust the stitch length for sewing straight stitch. So when I'm sewing clothes, I will sew between 2 and 3, but doing things like cushion covers and home furnishings, I'll set the stitch longer because you don't need a short stitch. And it's much easier as well to do piping when the stitch is actually longer. It just seems to move that bit better. So if I was going to be making a load of cushion covers, I would just make loads and loads of piping. But what I've done is I have just roughly cut a length of the bias tape that I know I'll have enough to go around the cushion. So there's enough and a little bit more. And make sure that when you start making your piping that you are on the wrong side of it, because trust me, I've done it. I've done where I've come up to the first seam and I've actually been on this side, and that's just so annoying. So go to the end, put your piping cord in, leave it stick out a little bit, and then put it under the foot. I hope you can see that. So I'm not starting right on the end, I'm about an inch in, and I'm basically going to keep my 2 raw edges here together, and I'm just going to feed it through and sew. So I'm just kind of twisting the piping cord. Now if your raw edges don't stay perfectly together, it's not the end of the world. Now I've just moved the camera because I wasn't sure if that was a good angle, but so I can keep my hands out of the way now. Now, I'm just going to stop there. I'm going to leave the piping on the end here, just so that I don't waste any. Okay, so we're ready to start sewing the piping onto the cushion covers. So what I've done is, I have started by, I'm in the middle of one of the sides. So I've already started sewing this, I just didn't realise that the camera wasn't on. So hence. So I started about 2 inches down from the end of the piping cord, And I've moved my needle a little bit closer over to the piping cord as well. So that means that when you look at the cushion cover from the front, you won't actually see this line of stitching that we've done to hold the piping cord into the binding. And I'm coming up to a corner here. What I'm going to do is, I hope you can see this, I've got the camera in as best position as I can. I'm going to just like manually kind of stretch it around. Now you will notice you'll get all these little crumples here. That doesn't matter, that's because they've stretched around this way. And I promise you, when you turn your cushion cover out, they won't be there. So I'm not clipping any of this because it is bias binding, and if it goes in a little bit from your seam allowance, it's not the end of the day. Around we go. Okay, that's one corner done. Okay, I've got quite a bit left over, so when I'm coming up then to where I want them to join, I'm going to stop there, needle down, I'm going to cut it around about here, so that's about 1.5 inches over, and what I'm going to do is just unpick that stitch. This is where it's good that your stitch length is long. I'm going to kind of peel back the two binding fabrics and put my two cords beside one another there. I hope you can see that. What I'm going to do with the scissors is just cut under the two of them. I'm sorry, I'm a bit awkward. There we go. So they're butted in towards one another like that. Take off that thread as well. Then I'm going to just put them together. Put one of the fabrics around. And this bit here, I'm going to turn under the seam allowance. Put that underneath. Now, it's a little bit fiddly when you're doing this on camera, but you've basically got everything enclosed there, and then you're going to sew now. So yeah, that's how it looks on the outside. There's a slight little lump, but you know what, you're not going to see that. So we're going to put that to one side, and we're going to work on doing the zip. So I have that piece there, and it's folded in by 1.5 inches, and I'm going to start on that one first. So I hope now I can get the camera angle nice so that you can actually see that going on. So I just zoom in. Okay, I think that's focused. So I've moved my zipper foot so that it's the other way around. So the needle now is to the right of it, and I've put the needle into the centre position, and I've kept my stitch length the same again. So I'm going to get my zip, so either your zip on a roll or your just a normal zipper. And I'm going to start close enough to the raw edge. And I'm going to keep, it's not a shine there, that's a bit annoying. Now I've kind of darkened that down on the camera, so I'm hoping you can see this better. So, okay, I've lined the teeth up quite close to that folded edge. And I'm going to sew. I haven't bothered to backstitch. You can if you want. You can also pin. I'm just sort of putting it up to the zip as I go. Now when you come up to your little zipper stop, just put the needle down, lift up the foot, and I find if I use like a stitch ripper or a no-all, something like that, just to pull him out of the way. And cut my zip off there. To the end. Sorry about the views up my sleeve. So there's my zip on one side. I've got my zipper pulley there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin the second piece on top. Now what I'm going to do is, the plaid makes it really handy here for lining up and making sure it's right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to overlap one on top of the other just by a couple of millimeters, if that makes any sense. So I'm not putting the two fabrics right up against one another like that. I'm going to overlap them. And pin that in place. And I'm going to pop in some pins all the way along. So you can see they're just overlapped a little bit, maybe 3 or 4 millimeters. And then back to the sewing machine. So now we want to move the zipper foot to the other side again, keeping it in the center position. That's how mine goes on. I always check as well, just in case it will actually go up and down, because I have that horrible fear of breaking needles. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here at the top. I'm going to sew, let's see if I can get in there a little bit. So I'm sewing on top here. I am going to backstitch this time. I'm sewing down about 1.5 inches. I'm going to put the needle in, take out that pin, pivot around. Now you can only do this with a plastic zip. Obviously you can't do this with a metal zip because you're going to sew right over the teeth this time. So with your finger, just feel along where the tape of the zip is. So I can feel it there. I'm going to sew over as far as there. I'm going to sew right over the teeth. Yeah, I think that's about it. And I'm going to pivot around, and I'm going to sew all the way down to about 1.5 inches from the end again. So as I go, I'm going to feel my way, and I'm going to make sure that it is overlapping as well. Now I can feel my pulley here, so I want to just lift up and pull it out of the way. You don't need the stitch ripper this time because it just moves. I'm going to make sure that my tape is still there. And again, I'm going to stop. I have a pin there. I'm going to make sure that my 2 teeth parts of the zip are there. And I'm going to sew across again. Then I'm going to sew the last bit here. And that is my zip in place. Just make sure, just in case you might have run over the edge of the tapes. Mine seems to be pretty good. Okay, so that's the back and the front, and what we want to do now is sandwich them together. And this is a reminder here as well not to pull the zip right up to the end, and you'll see why when it's finished, so just pull it back there a little bit. So now my back here. Now don't be worried if the back of your cushion is much bigger than the front, it doesn't matter. I always cut them too big because I'd rather cut it off than be trying to search for it. So I'm basically leaving one on top of the other, and I'm going to pin around. So I'm making sure that the binding is shoved in there. And I'm just going to pin it all around. Just make sure here at the corners that you keep the binding flat as well, because they have a tendency to kind of curl in like that. I'm going to sew it on the side where I can see the stitching going around. Sorry if I'm looking off to weird angles, because I'm used to filming on my phone and now I'm on my camera. So yeah, I'm going to start in the centre again. I'm going to start in the centre where there isn't the zip, and I'm basically going to sew all the way around, and yeah, just like I did when I sewed the piping cord on. So I'm just going to start and sew all around. Actually, I'm going to move the needle a little bit closer this time again, so kind of halfway there. And as I'm going around, I'm just making sure that the piping fabric is there. We've gone all the way around, and all I'm going to do now is just trim off the extra back fabric, and then I'm going to overlock around, and that's a lovely cushion cover. Sometimes it's kind of nice to make things like this, apart from clothing and things, and I always feel great when I see some new cushion covers on the couch. Always looks nice. Now mine were badly in need of replacing, so yeah, it was well time. I think these will add like a little bit of country chic to the couch. So I'm going to overlock them, and I'm going to turn it the right way out, give it a little iron, and then pop the cushion into it. So here we go, it's all ironed, cushion cover made, and when you are turning it right side out before you iron it, you will thank me for reminding you to open the zipper halfway during the process, because if you've left the zipper up, it is a very awkward job to try and grab hold of the zipper pull to open it. If it happens to you, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to get my cushion now, pop it into the cover. This is the moment of truth. Do love a new cushion cover. And give it a good whacking. Zip her up. Oh, that looks really good. So there we go. How lovely is that? And that's the back of it with the zip in the middle. And from a distance, you can't even see it. I think that looks really good. I like that. So that's really, really nice. I'm thrilled with those. So there we go. 2 cushion covers made this evening. I want to make another one that size because I've got 2 couches. And then that will just spruce up the living room a little bit. Tomorrow is Saturday, and Keris has to go to sing at her teacher's wedding tomorrow with a busload of other girls, so she's really looking forward to that. That should be fun. And yeah, I think I'm going to do just some general tidy up and some cleaning. I don't have huge plans, not huge plans for tomorrow, but definitely a bit of tidying up, and a bit of time with the dogs, time with the kittens, hoover up a lot of cat litter. They love playing in the cat litter. It's almost like a game. They love hopping in and just spraying it all over the place. So yeah, they love all that. And yeah, that's about it for tomorrow, I think. I hope you enjoyed the little cushion sew along. It was all I had to offer today. And yeah, so yeah, that's it for today. So I will see you all tomorrow. Bye for now.